Ever feel like you're stuck in a story you didn't write? Like you're just going through the motions, kind of a background character in your own life?
It's a common feeling, actually.
Well, get this. The way we tell our own stories, our narrative identity, it really impacts everything. Our happiness, the choices we make, you name it.
It's true. It's a powerful thing how we frame our experiences.
So in this deep dive, we're really diving deep into the psychology of storytelling. We're going to unpack this academic article on narrative identity, bring in some wisdom from Viktor Frankl and Carl Jung.
Two of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. And we'll see what Batman and the Joker, believe it or not,
Yeah.
have to teach us about becoming, well, the heroes of our own lives, right?
It's more connected than you might think.
Okay, so let's start basic.
Mm.
What exactly is this narrative identity thing?
Well, there's this psychologist, Dan McAdams, and he says it's basically how we connect all the dots of our life. All the ups and downs. The boring Mondays, the epic Fridays, all of it. We weave it together into a story.
So it's like our life story.
In a way, yeah. But it's more about how we make sense of it all. Not just what happens, but how we choose to tell that story,
Okay, so it's not just about the events. It's about the meaning we give them.
You got it. In McAdams, he found that people tend to do this in two main ways: the contamination sequence and the redemption sequence.
Ooh, those sound kind of ominous. What do they even mean?
So contamination sequence, think of it like this. Remember that time you, aced a job interview, felt fantastic, but then convinced yourself they'd never actually hire you?
Yes. The self-sabotage is strong with that one.
Right. And then, surprise, they didn't hire you. That's kind of like the contamination sequence. Good things happen, but you almost expect them to go bad. You're trapped by negativity.
Ouch, yeah, I've been there. So what does the redemption sequence look like then, if that's the opposite?
Think about a time you faced a setback. Maybe you failed at something, but instead of letting it derail you, you actually used it as fuel to learn, to grow.
The classic comeback story.
Exactly. Acknowledge the tough stuff, but see it as a setup for something better. That's redemption.
So it's not about pretending bad things don't happen. It's how we weave them into our story.
100%. And the cool thing is, this isn't just some self-help stuff. It actually connects to resilience, mental well-being, all of it.
Okay, but let's be real. What about when truly bad stuff happens?
Yeah.
Can you really spin that into a positive?
Well, that's where it gets tricky, right? And that's actually why this article we're looking at, they use Batman and the Joker as examples.
Okay, I'm intrigued now. Tell me more.
It's like they each embody these different narrative styles. But before we go full-on comic book analysis here, maybe a quick recap for our listeners who haven't spent their lives on Batman lore.
Good point, yeah. Not all of us have a bat signal on speed dial.
Right. So we have Bruce Wayne, right? As a child, he sees his parents murdered. Brutal. That kind of trauma could easily define someone's entire life.
Oh, absolutely. Most of us would have a hard time finding any meaning in that.
Exactly. He could have spiraled. Despair, anger, you name it. But instead, he makes a choice.
Okay, so how does this tie into the narrative stuff?
Well, he takes that pain, all that rage, and channels it. He decides to become Batman.
He turns his biggest fear, bats, into like a symbol of hope. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But where does Joker fit into this whole thing?
So Joker's origin story, it's a little fuzzy, but we know he's been through his own pain, his own trauma.
Right, he's not exactly known for his cheery disposition.
Right. But unlike Bruce Wayne, he doesn't overcome it. He gets consumed by it, trapped in this cycle of pain and lashing out.
So two characters, both shaped by really hard times, but they make completely different choices about it.
Exactly. And that's what's so interesting and what's so relevant to, well, you listening right now. It shows how much power we actually have in choosing how we narrate our experiences.
And now we get to the really juicy stuff, right? Like we're going full therapy session here.
Well, we are going a little deeper here.
We're talking about the whole shadow self thing.
Ah, yes, exactly. It's like that,
Which, I gotta admit, sounds kind of spooky.
it kind of does, right? But it makes sense.
Like, tell me there's not a literal monster under my bed.
No monsters under the bed, I promise. This is Carl Jung we're talking about here.
Okay, remind me.
Another psychology legend.
Right. Okay, so what did he say?
He said our shadow, it's all the stuff we try to hide,
From the world?
even from ourselves, those impulses, fears, things we don't want to admit to.
Okay, yeah. Like those questionable song lyrics you secretly love.
Exactly. They're part of you, but you don't want to put them on blast.
Right. Not exactly billboard material. But what does this have to do with Batman?
Think about it.
Okay.
He dresses as a bat, a creature of the night. Most people are terrified of bats,
Okay, true.
but he ONS that fear.
So he's confronting his shadow instead of letting it control him.
Yes. He integrates it, uses it as a force for good,
So he's not trying to be perfect. He's accepting all of himself, even the dark parts,
and then you have Joker. It's like he embodies the danger of not doing that.
of not facing your shadow.
He lets his pain consume him, turns it outwards.
So it's not just about acknowledging our shadow selves. It's about what we do with them.
Exactly, and that's where Viktor Frankl's work is so powerful.
Okay, bring on the hope. This is Viktor Frankl.
He was a psychiatrist, survived the Holocaust.
Wow. That in itself
Exactly.
had to have colored how he saw the
Yeah,
world.
it did. He went through unimaginable suffering, but he saw something amazing about people. He said, even when everything is taken from you, you still have one freedom.
What's that?
The freedom to choose your attitude, no matter what's happening.
That's incredible given what he went through. But, I mean, easier said than done, right?
Oh, absolutely, but so powerful. And it goes back to Batman and Joker, and to us.
Okay, I'm listening.
Bruce Wayne, Joker, they both face incredible pain, right? But Joker, he lets it define him, drag him down.
Yeah, he becomes the villain.
But Bruce, he makes a different choice. He takes that pain and channels it, becomes a symbol of hope.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we shift from feeling stuck to actually changing our story?
That's where Jung's idea of cyclical growth comes in.
Cyclical growth, what's that?
It means personal growth. It's not a straight line, it's a spiral.
A spiral, okay.
Like leveling up in a video game.
I can get behind that analogy.
You face similar challenges, but each time you have more experience, you can make a different choice.
So we're not doomed to repeat our mistakes forever. There's hope we can get it right.
Absolutely.
Thank goodness for that. I was starting to worry there. So we're not doomed to repeat our mistakes forever. There's hope we can get it right.
Absolutely. Think of that scene in The Dark Knight Rises where Bruce Wayne, he's trapped in that pit, right?
Oh yeah, intense scene.
It's like a visual metaphor for this whole idea. He has to face his fears, his limits, keeps climbing that wall again and again until finally...
He breaks free.
Exactly.
So even Batman gets stuck sometimes. I find that oddly comforting.
Mm.
But if we're going to keep facing these same challenges, isn't that, I don't know, kind of daunting?
It can be, yeah. But what if, instead of dreading it, we thought of it differently? Each time, it's like a chance to rewrite our story a little bit.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
We have more experience each time, new skills, we can make a different choice.
So it's less about, ooh, not this again, and more like, okay, round two, let's do this.
Exactly.
Mm.
You're not stuck in the past. You have the power to choose how you respond, even if it's just a small shift in how you're seeing things.
This has been quite the deep dive. Superhero psychology, surviving the Holocaust, all to figure out how to tell our own stories better. So for everyone listening, what's the takeaway? What do we do with all of this?
The stories we tell ourselves, they're powerful. If we know the patterns, the contamination, the redemption facing our shadows, we can start to see them in our own lives.
It's not just about analyzing fictional characters. It's about looking inward.
Right. Are we letting the bad stuff define us? Or are we finding the growth in it?
So are we the hero or the villain, basically, in our own lives?
In a way, yeah. And maybe, just maybe, if we get to know these parts of ourselves, we can start to rewrite those stories, become the heroes a little more often.
And isn't that what we all want? To be the hero of our own story. That's something I'm going to be thinking about for sure. And for our listeners, here's something for you to ponder. What kind of story are you telling yourself? And is it one that empowers you to become the hero of your own life?